Coming up, it's one of the most instantly recognizable and impossible to resist songs of the entire rock era. Its music video, it ain't chopped liver either. It's a song that rises above genre and era, but it'd be a long and rocky road for this band to get there. This band's rise to global fame started back in the late 70s when their keyboardist came up with one of the catchiest hooks of all time. Only the band thought it was too catchy. They nicknamed it the Juicy Fruit song because it was so over-the-top catchy. For a while, they wanted nothing to do with this song. Then in the 80s, they put it out, and it failed. How could the catchiest song ever not be a hit? Find out how they turned it around. Coming up next on Professor of Rock. Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you remember that beautiful transaction back in the day of trading your hard-earned dollars for a physical product, whether vinyl, 8-track, cassette, or compact disc, you're going to dig this channel of musical nostalgia. We invite you to be a part of this by subscribing below, by hitting the red button, click the bell, take a time machine back to the good old days every day. So it's time for another edition of our series, The New Standards. This is a show that takes an in-depth look into songs that transcend genre, decade, and fads. Songs that are monumental touchstones in our culture and within our society. Today, we're covering what may be the catchiest song in the history of all of pop music. I mean, the first time you hear it, or you heard it, it was just tattooed on your brain for eternity. It's undeniable. It's an 80s high that knocks you off your feet. It's Norway's most recognizable band, a-ha, and their perfect 85 pop hit, Take On Me. Take on me. Although the title of the song may be grammatically incorrect, there's no doubt it's one of the most beloved songs from the New Wave era. However, its rise to fame, or to the top of the charts, it wouldn't be easy. In fact, this iconic song, it would have to wait the better part of a decade before it finally became a hit, from the time that it was written. Now, a-ha is comprised of lead singer Morten Harkett, keyboardist Magni Mags Furlholmen, and guitarist Paul Wakhtar Savoy. But the band, it would actually start as a duo, going back to when Mags and Powell were just 12 and 13 in the mid-70s. Before meeting Morton, the two played in several bands throughout their teens and were heavily influenced by 60s psychedelia, particularly The Doors and Jimi Hendrix. However, in 1977, at the age of 15, Mags wrote a riff that would transform the young band from 60s psychedelia to 80s synth pop. That hook was the beginnings of Take On Me. Mags knew right away that he'd written something really incredible. Powell, however, he had his reservations. He thought it was too cheesy, too poppy. In fact, it was so catchy that the two used to call it the Juicy Fruit song because, it reminded them of over-the-top American commercials like Juicy Fruit Gum.
That juicy flavor, Juicy Fruit's the flavor lovers gum.
They were selling the good life, American commercials. Everybody remembers the Juicy Fruit commercials. For a while, Mags and Powell kept the riff at arm's length. They treated it like a guilty pleasure. That is until 1982 when they recruited Morton into the band. As Morton remembered it, he went to see the guys play at Powell's parents' place. First thing he heard when he got there was the hook for Take On Me. I'm on the settings, I'm me. Mags was on the piano and Powell on the guitar, and instantly Morton knew it was going to be a really big hit song, according to him. With the addition of Morton, things really started to come together for this band. But they knew if they were going to make it, in the music business, they had to leave Norway. So the three located to London. And their Take On Me passed through multiple iterations as a-ha chased their big break. One early version of the song was called Lesson 1. Today is another day to find you. Morton described these years as an exciting time for the band. They were proud to represent their home country and wanted to prove that they could be just as popular as the English bands of the day. This is when new wave music and the second British invasion was taken over. Said Mags about it, When we came to England as Aha in '82, there were multiple radio stations playing all this new music. There was Depeche Mode, Yazoo, ABC, Kid Creole, and the Coconuts. Our synth sound happened partly by necessity. Before we left Norway, we used to have bass and drums and someone else playing a second guitar. But when we came to the UK, it was just me, Pal, and Morton. So we had to find a new way of making music, end of quote. Mags also said that it was Soft Cell's Tainted Love that sold them on New Wave. Hearing that song made him realize that they could make emotional music using synthesizers. In time, Aha was discovered by studio manager John Ratcliffe, who, along with former A&R man Terry Slater, they offered to manage the band. So the two of these guys, they arranged a record industry showcase with executives from EMI and RCA and CBS and a Warner Brothers talent scout named Andy Wickham. Now, after hearing their latest demo of Take On Me, Andy Wickham, he fell in love with the song and he signed the band on the spot. Tony Mansfield was chosen to produce Aha's first album, Hunting High and Low. But the band didn't like Mansfield's approach. Said Pal, Tony Mansfield was really in love with a machine called the Fairlight. So he liked to put everything into this machine. And by doing that, he had to discard a lot of the stuff that we had on the demo. As a result of this, the chorus, it felt flat. The song had little emotion. And it no longer sounded like a hit. But in 1984, Warner Brothers released it as a single anyway, and they filmed an uninspired music video to go along with it. Now, the '84 version of Take On Me, it got virtually no airplay. It sold poorly, and it really went nowhere. Aha was extremely dejected by the song's failure. They knew that this song was a smash hit, and yet it had failed. They thought they'd blown their best chance of having a hit single. But they didn't give up. As we find out how they turned it around, let's pause for our sponsor, Zenni Eyewear, the glasses I always wear. I've worn Zennis for 3 years now, actually. I have about 15 pairs, and I've yet to break a pair. The quality is really unbelievable for the price. Let's talk about that price. With inflation killing us, Zenni stands out as the best choice. You can get a complete pair of prescription glasses for up to 80% off regular retail prices. Just click on this info button right up here, and there'll be a link that comes out, and you'll get the best POR price there. So somehow Aha convinced their label to let him re-record Take On Me, this time with a different producer. Enter Alan Tarney. Tarney loved the original demo, and he wanted the new recording to sound like that as much as possible. He even said, let's look at all the parts you have and try to make them sound better. Tarney accentuated the existing instrumental elements and injected more energy into it. The rhythm track for Tarney's new and improved Take On Me was programmed on a Roland Juno 60 synthesizer. And it really did justice to Mag's addicting melody. This 1985 Alan Tarney Take On Me redo, it would electrify the world over. Not just back in '85, but in every generation since that time. What Tarney would bring out of this song would make it a pop standard for the ages. I mean, I'd argue that just the magical melody alone, it makes Take On Me a timeless offering. But even taking that out of the equation, this song, it still beats out today's fast food mainstream songs by a long shot. I'll tell you why. It's all about the song structure. Let's talk about it. In terms of song structure, you don't hear a vocal on Take On Me until you're like 35 seconds into the song. This was really common of many of the greatest 80s songs. Each instrument is given its own moment to shine. It's the same on Take On Me. Each part is given enough space to breathe while accentuating what has already come before it. I mean, you could distinctly hear each part build on top of each other, and that engages you as a listener. It hooks you in from the very start, and it buckles you in for the entire ride. Take On Me, it's a masterclass in this process. It starts with that percussion. adds in a subtle keyboard part, and then a supporting keyboard part. And then it's off to the races with the hooky keyboard that drives the song all the way forward. And then there are vocal samples and rising chords. And then we're into the vocal, completely invested, heart, mind, and soul. I mean, it's complete musical foreplay, building and building until there's just no turning back. I mean, you think about it. A mainstream hit from today would never be allowed 35 seconds until a vocal came in. Today, attention spans are diminished. It's all cut to the chase. And even worse, it's all stat-based. It's market research. It's art by committee, minus the art. Back in the day, it was all about feel. It was intuitive. Artists were given room to make mistakes and grow over the course of a career. Aha, they're a prime example of that. It took multiple iterations of the song to finally break out, but when they finally did, it's a pop standard forever. Now, another reason why Take On Me is a modern standard is because of Morten Harkett's angelic lead vocal. His inspired singing, it's just captivating. It's beautiful the way Morten romanticizes the song's whimsical lyrics with his gentle timbre and his passionate pleading. How Morten Harkett wasn't the biggest pinup of the 80s, it's beyond me. I mean, his chiseled good looks combined with his incomparable voice, he's like James Dean meets Pavarotti. I mean, Harkett's heroic falsetto, where he hits that karaoke-shattering E5 octave on that climactic promise, I'll be there in a day. It sounds humanly impossible. I've seen a lot of people crash and burn on this chorus on too many karaoke nights to name. Harkett's soaring vocal, it's a legendary moment in a legendary song. But no matter how much you give the song its due, you can't tell the story of Take On Me without talking about its iconic music video. There's no doubt, as incredible as this song is, that this video launched him into global fame. Director Steve Barron, he was reportedly given a £100,000 budget and as much time as he needed to get this thing done. It was an unheard of amount of money back then, especially for an unknown band, one that had failed before with this very song. But that's how much Warner Brothers believed in the song. Barron's instructions were simply to make an amazing video. And that was something that Steve could do. I mean, just a few of the many music videos already to his credit at that time included Michael Jackson's Billie Jean, the Human League's Don't You Want Me. There was also Bryan Adams' Summer of '69. He was both experienced and visually creative. For Take On Me, Barron, he utilized an innovative technique called rotoscoping, in which animators trace over live-action film frame by frame. Said Steve, I decided to do a frame-by-frame animation for Take On Me. No video director had ever had the time or the money to do this. In rotoscope, you shoot everything first as a live-action film, and then it's reanimated frame by frame. Now, the video's primary artist, Michael Patterson, he would do thousands of drawings to create this effect. The video's storyline, of course, follows a young woman played by actress Bunty Bailey. Sitting in a coffee shop, she flips through a comic book that features Harkett winning a motorcycle race. And suddenly, Harkett's hand reaches out of the page, inviting Bailey into his world. There they dance, they begin to fall in love. But of course, trouble ensues when the other racers, angry at Harkett, they give chase. Harkett's character helps the girl escape back into the real world, where she runs home to finish the story. Now, in one of the frames, she sees Harkett lying on the ground, Apparently, having been beat, she fears the worst. But of course, young love wins the day as Harkett's animated character turns up in her hallway. During an homage to the movie Altered States, he slams himself into her walls until he breaks into her live-action world. Perfect 80s ending. Leading lady Bunty Bailey said she had no idea the song and the video would be such a huge success. But that 2-day shoot would be the highlight of her entire career. She would also turn up in some other 80s music videos. She was in Billy Idol's To Be a Lover, OMD's Talking Loud and Clear, Duran Duran's The Wild Boys, and a-ha's follow-up single, The Sun Always Shines on TV. But nothing would be as big as Take On Me. One of the red letter music videos of all time. And the music video's vixen, she also had a real-life romance with Morton Harkett. The two would date for a couple of years. Steve Barron remembered when they started shooting, he told Morton to take Bunty by the hand and lead her into this comic world. And I guess by about take 4, they wouldn't stop holding hands, even after they cut. Thanks to the video and multiple re-recordings, Take On Me was a global sensation, going top 5 almost everywhere. It soared to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. It made a-ha the first Norwegian group to reach the top spot. Take On Me, it also went to #1 on the Cashbox chart, and it went to #4 on the Adult Contemporary chart. Internationally, Take On Me went to #7 in New Zealand and South Africa. It went to #4 in Finland, #3 in France, #2 in Canada, the UK, Denmark, and Ireland. And then it went to #1 in Australia, Switzerland, West Germany, Greece, Austria, Italy, Sweden, the Netherlands, Belgium, and of course, Norway. Not surprisingly, Take On Me also nabbed 6 1986 MTV Video Music Awards, and it got a Grammy nod for Best New Artist. Now, since then, Take On Me has been heavily utilized in pop culture, from a Volkswagen campaign.
Is that me? Was I singing?
To movies and TV shows like Grosse Pointe Blank, The Simpsons, Scrubs.
So, Nelson, who did...
This is 40, Raising Hope, Superstore, Chuck. Psych, Supergirl, Deadpool 1 and 2. La La Land, Despicable Me 3. Riverdale, Bumblebee, The Goldbergs, Quantum Leap, Glee. And The Family Guy, just to name a few. Take On Me has also been covered by many. The Fray, Better Than Ezra. MXPX, Real Big Fish, Lisa Loeb. KT Tunstall and Tori Amos, to name a few. Also, I gotta give a shout out to Weezer's cover of Take On Me, especially with its nostalgic music video. Very cool. You know, here in America, a-ha is sometimes pegged as a one-hit wonder. That's so wrong on so many levels. I guess maybe Take On Me was so big here in the States that it overshadows the rest of their catalog. It's true that a-ha didn't have a lot of Hot 100 entries, but I mean, their very next single, The Sun Always Shines on TV, it reached #20. It's one of the best follow-up singles to a #1 hit from the 80s, in my opinion. It's a breathtaking song. And then in 1986, Cry Wolf came in at #50. Although they didn't chart in the US, they also wrote the title track for the 1987 James Bond film The Living Daylights. After that, the band dropped off the map in the US, but a-ha has had phenomenal success around the rest of the world. Throughout their career, they've released over 30 globally charting singles, 20 of those breaking the top 20. In Norway alone, they also have 17 top 10 hits and 8 number 1 hits. Throughout their career, they've released 11 studio albums, and they're still at it, dropping their latest record, True North, in 2022. And the slow version of Take On Me, just phenomenal. And of course, the band has also been around long enough to pass through multiple breakups and reunions. They went on hiatus from 1994 to 1998. Then again from, I think, 2010 to about 2015. But in that time, they've sold over 100 million units when you combine albums and singles anyway. So that term one-hit wonder, it has nothing to do with a-ha. They're not a one-hit wonder in any stretch of the imagination. According to Mags, though, the band spent years trying to talk it down. Get people to focus on their new music. But this song, it just resonates with people across time, across generations, and there's just no way to forget about it. Ultimately, Mags admitted that it was an impossible task, and he has said that he's very fortunate and proud to have such a big song in their catalog. Decades after its release, 2020 Take On Me became the 5th music video from the 20th century to reach 1 billion views on YouTube. Take on me. I mean, you could make a very solid argument that it's the definitive song of the 80s. Maybe even an argument that it's the definitive synth pop song ever. Certainly had as big of an effect on the current generation as it did Gen X. I mean, you think about it. If YouTube had existed in '85, it'd probably be at like 5 billion views by now. This video, revolutionary. a-ha is spectacular, and Take On Me, absolutely flawless. No doubt about it, it's a new standard of the global music canon. I remember when it came out and I first heard it, I couldn't believe my ears. It was like the first time I saw E.T. I think I was like 10 or 11. Anyway, I remember that when I got to the store, my dad took me to the store and they didn't have the single. They just had the album, the cassette. And so I didn't have enough money for the cassette. And I was pretty disappointed. And I remember that my dad said, I'll tell you what, you give me your $5, I'll add $5 to it, and you can do a couple of chores for me when you get home, and you can have this tape. And my dad didn't know it then, but that little kind gesture, that was one of the greatest memories that I have of being a kid growing up in the 80s. Just the way that cassette felt in my hands, and that my dad had taken care of a really disappointing moment. And I'm so grateful for my dad. I miss him every day. Anyway, didn't mean to get all emotional, but Take On Me, it was magical. I remember listening to it on the car ride home in his truck. He put it in for me. We sang along to it. Man, just nothing like the 80s. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Let us know your memories of a-ha's Take On Me. What a phenomenal song. Is this the most magical song of the 80s? What are your memories of it? Do you remember buying the cassette for the first time? Let us know in the comments. Let's have a great discussion. I mean, seriously, that voice, Morton, he's just incredible. If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe below. We'd love to have you as part of our community. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth.